At 70, I found myself standing at the gate of Sandpiper House on Seabrook Island, the keys trembling in my grasp. I am Norma Reynolds, and for 2 decades this little seaside cottage had been my refuge, a testament to survival and devotion. That morning, however, my sanctuary felt violated. Strangers lounged on my porch, laughter spilling from rooms that had always been my haven. Brooke, my daughter-in-law, leaned over the railing as if the house belonged to her. "There's no room for you here," she shouted, her voice sharp enough to slice through the ocean breeze. Behind her, teenagers kicked a ball into my carefully tended flower beds, while her mother, Elaine, strolled past wearing one of my robes like it was her own. Every detail screamed intrusion. I did not yell. I did not plead. I simply held the keys tighter. I knew this confrontation would not be settled with arguments on the porch. This was a battle for truth, and it would be fought where it mattered most, in court. I remembered the day I first walked this shore, 50 years old, with nothing but a dream and a widow's pension. My husband had died suddenly, leaving me to raise our son alone while stitching clothes late into the night. Every hem, every repaired gown, every quilt sold at the market brought me closer to this house. Sandpiper House was never just walls. It was proof that a woman could endure, persist, and create something of her own. Each brick in the fireplace, every rosemary bush lining the steps, had been earned through toil and sacrifice. I had sold quilts and tailored prom dresses to make mortgage payments. I had built a home from determination and love, a place where family could always feel welcome. Now, standing in the driveway, I noticed unfamiliar cars parked as if it were a public lot. Empty bottles and cups littered the bushes. Music pounded from inside, drowning the ocean's rhythm. Teenagers trampled my geraniums, wet towels and clothes draped over my wicker furniture. Every corner shouted violation. Brooke appeared in the doorway, tall and triumphant, her sister Tessa recording the spectacle on her phone. Elaine sipped coffee, smirking from my favorite chair. Robert told us we could use the house whenever we wanted, Brooke said, as if my decades of work meant nothing. "What's his is mine, and what's yours is his," she added with a laugh that cut deeper than the broken planters. I felt anger rise, steady and deliberate, stronger than fear. One boy smirked at me. "Why don't you just get a hotel?" he sneered. But I refused to give them satisfaction. I tucked the keys back into my purse, straightened my shoulders, and smiled calmly. "Enjoy yourselves," I said softly. That night, in a hotel far from Sandpiper, I sat with a notebook and a plan. I listed documents to gather, bank visits to secure, and an attorney to contact. This was no longer about humiliation. It was about strategy. Each stitch I had sewn in the past was a lesson in persistence. And just like those seams, I would repair the intrusion into my life, one careful step at a time. The morning after the intrusion, I returned to Sandpiper House, but this time I came prepared. My heart pounded with a mix of fury and determination. The house that had been my refuge now felt like a crime scene. Everything I touched reminded me that this invasion was intentional, calculated. The first order of business was clarity. I went through every room, every drawer, and every hidden compartment. I found more than trash and disarray. I found evidence of betrayal. My jewelry was missing, the deed to Sandpiper House crumpled on. The floor, and scattered across the closet, were legal forms I hadn't signed. They weren't just planning a stay, they were plotting to erase me. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with resolve. Among the papers, a set of petitions stood out. Documents aiming to transfer my house to my son, Daniel. At the top, Brooke's handwriting scrawled instructions like a map for theft. Once signed, we can sell or upgrade. R just has to cooperate. My blood ran cold. This was not carelessness. This was premeditated fraud. I knew the first step was to secure my finances. I drove to the bank I had trusted for decades and asked for a private meeting with Mr. Luis Alvarez, the manager. His usual warm greeting was replaced with curiosity as I explained the situation. "I need a full statement of my accounts and written confirmation that I am fully competent to manage my own funds," I told him firmly. He pulled up the records, and relief flickered through me. Savings, certificates of deposit, checking accounts, $122,000 in total. Money they had no idea existed, untouched and secure. Alvarez leaned in. "You'll need legal representation. This isn't just a family dispute. This is serious." I nodded, already having made the call. By afternoon, I was sitting across from attorney Colton Pierce, a sharp-eyed man with silver hair and decades of experience. I laid everything before him: the porch confrontation, the stolen jewelry, the forged documents, and the petition to declare me incompetent. He listened quietly, taking careful notes. "Miss Reynolds," he finally said, tapping his pen, "this is more than a family quarrel. This is fraud. We will file an emergency eviction for illegal occupation, report the stolen items, and pursue charges for forgery and property fraud. The law will back you." I absorbed his words. For the first time, anger began to transform into strategy. The house could be reclaimed. The dignity stolen from me could be restored. But this was not just about punishment. It was about protecting what was rightfully mine and ensuring that no one, least of all my own family, could manipulate or exploit me again. That night, back at the hotel, I organized everything: deeds, insurance papers, bank statements, and photographs documenting every corner of my home. Every detail mattered. Every record was ammunition in the battle ahead. As the ocean waves whispered, against the shore I felt a quiet surge of purpose. They had thought they could intimidate me with noise, with laughter, with theft. They had underestimated the woman who had built a home with her own hands, who had stitched her life together one seam at a time. Tomorrow, the fight would begin in court. But tonight, I allowed myself a small moment of satisfaction. I was no longer a passive victim. I was an investigator, a strategist, a woman reclaiming what was hers. And this time, there would be no mistakes, no shortcuts, and no mercy for those who tried to steal my life. The morning sunlight glinted off the ocean as I parked in front of Sandpiper House, not alone this time. Attorney Colton Pierce was by my side, along with a uniformed officer and a notary public. For 20 years, this cottage had been my sanctuary. Today, it would be the stage for reclaiming my life. Brooke and her family were on the terrace when we arrived, plates of half-eaten breakfast before them. Their laughter faltered the moment they saw the police cruiser. Brooke's fork clattered to the table. "Good morning," Pierce announced firmly. "I represent Mrs. Norma Reynolds, the rightful owner of this property. You are in unlawful occupation, and this is an immediate eviction order." The officer read aloud the charges: trespassing, destruction of property, and theft. Tessa lowered her phone, no longer documenting my humiliation. Elaine's smirk vanished, replaced with pale disbelief. Brooke's laugh cracked under the weight of reality. 2 hours. That was the time given to them to gather their belongings. Anything belonging to me was not to be touched. Boxes flew open, possessions scrambled into bags, and the arrogance they had carried like armor crumbled under the law. I walked through the chaos quietly, observing the fall of entitlement. Then Daniel arrived, screeching onto the gravel driveway. "Mom, what's happening?" His eyes were wide, filled with confusion. I held up the crumpled petition. "This is your wife's plan to steal my house, and you signed it." He froze, the weight of betrayal dawning on him. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. I simply walked through each room, noting the damage, the missing jewelry, the ruined furniture, and the trampled rosemary plants by the steps. Each loss was tangible. Yes, but it was also proof. They had crossed a line. And now it was time to set boundaries. Weeks later, Attorney Pierce confirmed the next steps. Dr. Neil Porter, the doctor who falsified my dementia report, had been suspended. Criminal charges for fraud and conspiracy were filed against Brooke, Daniel, and anyone involved. It was no longer just civil justice. The legal system recognized the gravity of the betrayal. I made careful decisions for the future. The locks were changed, security cameras installed. A part-time caretaker, Maria, came 3 days a week. Sandpiper House would never again be vulnerable. To those who thought family entitlement outweighed honesty, my will was updated. Daniel would not inherit the property. Instead, it would go to a local charity. Control was no longer negotiable, it was absolute. In the quiet that followed, I began rebuilding my life. I joined a senior support group in Charleston, sharing my story with others who had suffered similar betrayals. I helped them safeguard their homes, organize financial records, and understand the legal tools available to protect themselves. My pain transformed into purpose, and my voice became a shield for others. One afternoon, Daniel approached me alone, his shoulders hunched with remorse. "Mom, I came to ask for forgiveness. I betrayed you. There's no excuse." I listened, knowing forgiveness wasn't a gesture, it was a process. Over time, I allowed the children to visit. Their laughter eventually filled the house in a way that only family could. Standing in the garden one Sunday, my granddaughter Sophia knelt beside me, her bright eyes curious. "Grandma, why did you and Dad fight so badly?" I smiled softly. "Adults make mistakes, dear. But protecting love and dignity is always worth the fight." For the first time since the invasion, Sandpiper House felt like home again. It was no longer just a building. It was a testament to endurance, courage, and the unshakable truth that I would never surrender what I had earned. The salty breeze of Seabrook Island filled my lungs as I stepped onto the terrace of Sandpiper House. For the first time in weeks, it felt like mine, truly mine. The eviction was complete, the legal battles winding down, and the house no longer carried the weight of betrayal. Every tile, every brick, every rosemary plant stood as a testament to decades of perseverance. The first order of business was restoration. I hired local craftsmen to repair broken furniture, repaint walls, and replace the trampled garden plants. The familiar scent of fresh paint and polished wood began to mingle with the ever-present tang of ocean air. Even the smallest details mattered. The wicker chairs returned to their places, embroidered cushions fluffed, kitchen counters scrubbed until they gleamed. Sandpiper House, once violated, was becoming a sanctuary again. But it wasn't the renovations alone that brought life back. It was the presence of family in a way that felt safe and genuine. Daniel visited quietly without Brooke by his side. There was tension, yes, but also a fragile recognition of mistakes and consequences. He didn't ask for the keys. He didn't ask for permission. He simply came to reconnect, slowly learning that respect and accountability were the foundations of our renewed relationship. And then there was Sophia, my granddaughter, bright and endlessly curious. She brought laughter back into the rooms that had once echoed with mockery. One afternoon, she sat in the garden beside me, her small hands patting the earth around newly planted flowers. "Grandma, tell me again why this house is special," she asked, her eyes sparkling. I smiled, brushing a strand of her hair behind her ear. "This house is special because it survived storms, because it's made of hard work and love, and because it's a place where family belongs, not just the people who think they own it, but those who honor it." Sophia nodded, absorbing the lesson in her own quiet way. In her presence, I felt a peace I hadn't known since Brooke first crossed my threshold. Her laughter, her questions, her gentle curiosity reminded me why Sandpiper House had always been more than walls and furniture. It was a living, breathing memory of love, sacrifice, and resilience. I continued my volunteer work with the senior support group, guiding others through the pitfalls I had faced. Each story I heard, each life I helped safeguard, deepened my own sense of purpose. I realized that my battle was never just about the house. It was about dignity, justice, and the courage to stand firm in the face of betrayal. Evenings became my favorite part of the day. Sophia would run barefoot along the sand while I brewed tea on the terrace. Daniel sometimes joined us, tentative but present, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting gold and pink across the water, I would sit in my restored chair and simply breathe. The waves lapped gently, the garden flourished, and Sandpiper House thrummed with life once more. At 70, I had learned a powerful truth. Age is not fragility, it is resilience. It is proof that even after betrayal, humiliation, and loss, one can rebuild, reclaim, and thrive. Sandpiper House had been violated, but it had not been defeated, and neither had I. As I held Sophia's small hand and watched her curious gaze roam over the flowers and the sand, I realized that the greatest inheritance I could leave was not the house itself, but the lesson it represented: strength, dignity, and love endure even when tested. And in that moment, surrounded by laughter, ocean, and restored memories, I knew my fight had been worth every stitch, every step, every act of courage. Sandpiper House was mine again, not just as a home, but as a symbol of all I had survived, reclaimed, and now cherished.